Good morning, everyone. Today we are going to report about psychological foundations of curriculum. Here are the objectives. At the end of the discussion, the students are expected to discuss why psychological foundation enable curriculum workers to perform their educational responsibilities, identify the different psychological perspectives, and explain the roles of psychological perspectives. In the biopsychology series, our professor talked about the structure of the brain as well as the process by which specialized the cells called neurons that transmit information throughout the body via actions, potentials, and neurotransmitters. We learn how series gather information from our surrounding or environment and how the brain makes sense of that information to give us our perception of the world we live in. We explore how the brain controls our behavior throughout our lives, from eating to sleeping and everything in between. We even talked about what it means for our brains to be conscious, but as detailed as this endeavor was, the standpoint of anatomy and physiology. There's a lot more to talk about considering how the mind works itself, beyond hallucinating biological and chemical processes that governs our brains and our lives. We want to understand how our thoughts, feelings, and desires affect our behavior. To do this, we must enter the realm of psychology. Psychology deals with how human learns and behave. The main goal of psychological foundation of curriculum is to bring about learning. Therefore, curriculum developers need to know how humans learn. Why? So that they can incorporate psychological principles when they design, develop, and implement curriculum. Today, we know that children are not empty vessels but come to school with many different experiences, prior knowledge, and expectations.
First psychological perspective is behaviorism. Learning is considered a habit formation. Teaching is regarded as arranging learning experiences in such a way as to promote desirable behavior. Behaviorists believe that behavior can be conditioned by altering the environment. Proponents of behaviorism. The first proponent is Ivan Pavlov. He introduced the theory of classical conditioning. This means that stimulus is equal to response. He showed that an organism can associate a particular stimulus with a particular response. The second proponent is Edward Thorndike. He proposed three laws. 1. Law of effect. The response that is reinforced positive will become habitual. 2. Law of exercise. It is the connection between the stimulus and response will be strengthened with practice. The third, law of readiness. Certain behaviors are more likely to be learned than others because the nervous system of the organism is ready to make the connection leading to a satisfying state of affairs. The third proponent of behaviorism is Boris F. Skinner. This means of operant conditioning. It is when a particular response or behavior is reinforced or rewarded. The individual is conditioned to respond. These also include positive and negative reinforcement and includes punishment.
Cognitivism is a learning theory that focuses on how information is received, organized, stored, and retrieved by the mind. Because cognitivism uses a mind as an information processor just like a computer do. Therefore, cognitivism looks beyond observable behavior, viewing the learning as internal mental process. While cognitivists emphasizes that learning is primarily cognitive in nature. Why? Because according to cognitive development theory, cognitive constructivism states that knowledge is something that is actively constructed by learners based in their existing cognitive structures. Therefore, learning is relative to their stage of cognitive development. Learners construct new knowledge on the foundations. Jean Piaget is a proponent who introduced the cognitive development theory, and he suggested that intelligence changes as a child grows, since cognitive development occurs through the environmental events and children pass through a series of stages. These stages are sensory motor, or the perception of the environment through the sense; pre-operational, the ability to store words and language increases; third, concrete operations, where the development of logical thinking in relation to the functions, and this is also the questioning stage. The fourth one is the operation stage. This is formulating hypotheses, abstract thinking, and maturity.
Constructivism refers to many schools of thought that, though extraordinarily different in their techniques, are all connected by a common critiques of previous standard approaches, and by shared assumptions about the active constructive nature of human knowledge. Also, learning involves the constructions of new understanding by combining prior learning with new information. Knowledge is constructed in the mind of the learner. Learning also is active. Learning as a social activity. Social environments, experiences, skills, knowledge, culture are influence learning. Cooperative, collaborative, and group investigation allow students to discuss ideas, beliefs, and misconceptions. Zone of proximal development differences between what learners can do on their own and with help on others, experts, or peers. Constructivism in classroom. Students' autonomy encouraged. Also, higher level thinking is encouraged. Also, the students engage in dialogue with teachers. Also, students engage in discussion that challenges hypotheses. Jerome Bronner states that a theory of instruction should address four major aspects. First, predisposition towards learning. Second, the most effective sequences in which to present materials. Third, the ways in which a body of knowledge can be structured so that it can be most readily grasped by the learner. Fourth, the nature and pacing of rewards and punishment.
Humanism. The learner is a person who has feelings, attitudes, and emotions. Past experience, such as failing grades, have a huge impact on the student's current ability to learn. Abraham Maslow. Maslow hierarchy of needs. Lower levels must be satisfied first before one could function at higher levels. Schools cannot hold the influence that impedes on a learner, but they can create an atmosphere of trust, warmth, and care. Carl Roger, client-centered therapy. He proposed that classrooms should become learner-centered and teachers should facilitate learning.
Psychological foundation is based on the individual differences of students. It has its own unique personality and they have differences in their learning and skills. They are different in nature, so they can't be treated alike in teaching learning process. Some may be fast learner while others are slow. Psychological forms the basis for education. It is helpful in understanding the individual's differences among children. According to Pistology, the aim of education is the harmonious natural and progressive development of the pupil. To fulfill this aim, the teacher must have an insight into the working of the child's mind.